Okay, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin, and sadly enough, Dr. Lopkin, there's really only one thing to talk about.
Yeah, coronavirus has basically taken everything else off the front page. It's all
Yes.
anybody's talking about. It's all anybody's thinking about.
Yep, and I also believe that I'm also fascinated in some ways how it went from where it is, where it was to where it is. It's just unbelievable. It's totally unbelievable to me.
Well, realistically, the only thing that changed is that we're doing more testing, so we have better numbers. The
Well, no,
situ-
no. I'm just trying to say is in January, maybe on a good day, I was mildly concerned. Uh, hey, what's going on? What's this new thing? What is it? Really? Wow, it's in China. Oh, okay. And now in the end of March, beginning of April, April 1st, it's it could jeopardize our entire economy and entire society. Do you agree or not? Plus,
well,
not even society, people's mental health, suicides are going to go way up.
well, again, it's changing how everything is. I mean, is it a short-term threat? Absolutely. Is it a long-term threat? No. But the big
Well, what do you mean
problem,
by long? What do you mean by no long-term threat? I say it could come back in the fall.
if it comes back in the fall, most of us will have already been exposed to it, which means we'll have antibodies.
Okay, wait,
So
wait, wait. This is really important for our listeners. You're saying to me that most of us are going to get it the first round.
that's what most of the doctors are saying, is that most people will be infected by this, at least, exposed to it. Well, once you're exposed, your immune system creates antibodies.
No, I got that. But if you're exposed, don't you get sick?
No, not necessarily. 80% of the people who are exposed never show any symptoms. They don't get sick.
Huh.
That's an important number. Um, I mean, ABC
But how do you
reported
get sick? How do you get sick? I need to ask these questions for our listeners. They might seem naive to you, but they're really not to me. So, how do you get sick if you live in a house? Obviously, no one's going out to bars or restaurants, obviously. So, how do you get sick?
well, people are still going out. You still need to go out to get groceries, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. Even in delivery, I mean, the virus lives on surfaces, granted, not for terribly long, but there was a story in the news earlier that somebody in a delivery room had been exposed to it and he didn't tell anybody. Well, and I'm saying delivery room in terms of packages, not a hospital delivery room with
Yeah.
babies. So he then exposed everybody he came into contact with. The virus, if he coughed, if he sneezed, went on a package. Now, granted, it doesn't live terribly long on cardboard, but if the person that's delivering your package sneezes on it, it doesn't take that long for you to take the package. You're exposed. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to get sick,
Mm-hmm.
but the exposure is enough to start creating antibodies. Now, they're already saying that the doctors are already saying that they expect the vast majority of us to be exposed to this before it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're exposed, again, 80% of the people aren't going to get sick from it. Then you get the antibodies. Once you have the antibodies, you have a stronger immune response to it. So it's not as deadly the second time around.
No, it might not be deadly at all. Yeah.
Right. On top of that, there are already 9 treatments and vaccines in trials that they are fast tracking so that if this comes back next flu season, we will have some sort of medication to blunt it already.
Okay, let's talk about the economy. President Trump claims that the economy is going to bounce back in no time flat. Your assessment, sir?
I don't know about no time flat. It's certainly going to bounce back. It's not, I don't think it's going to take us as long as people think to bounce back. Because if you take a look at what's going on now, supermarkets, retail are doing bang up business. They're still in business. Companies like Amazon, CVS, Aetna, they're hiring right now. So what
Okay.
you're going,
But I'm
so
talking
what you're,
about, wait a second, but how about major corporations, high paying jobs? They're shedding people like it's a bad habit.
well, most of them are furloughed.
Yes.
And there's a big difference between furloughed and unemployed.
Agreed
Because
100%.
while the
Agreed
stimulus
100%.
while the stimulus package allows furloughed employees to get unemployment to help them through the period of their furlough, being furloughed means they're going to be hired back. Now, the
They have
biggest
the option of hiring back. There's no guarantee.
right. There are
Mhm.
also, I think the last time I saw it was about 50 of the largest companies. The higher ups, the CEOs, CFOs, C-level employees, and high level VPs have been giving up their salaries so that the lower level employees can be paid. And there's a lot of that going around. So there is a major initiative from both the government and the private sector to keep the economy from crashing.
Agreed. I think it's still going to be a major impact. I think it's one of the scariest times I have ever lived through, and I'm sure our listeners as well. I've never seen anything like this.
Oh, it's definitely going to have a major impact. Let's not soft pedal that. Despite everything I'm saying, the economy is going to crater. It's going to hit bottom, and it's going to hit bottom hard.
Mhm.
But unlike 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, where it hit bottom hard and stayed there, primarily because the Obama administration did horrible things to try to blunt the impact and didn't take into consideration recovery, and instead used the crisis to push through things like Obamacare and his other policies.
Agreed.
When this hits bottom, the recovery is going to be a bounce. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a V, which is basically it hits bottom and comes right back, or it's going to be a W, where it hits bottom, bounces back, hits bottom again, and bounces back. And either one of these, there's about a 50-50 shot of either one of those happening. So even though it's going to be hard, it's not going to be as long as the recovery from the Great Recession. And we will probably bounce back not just faster, but higher than we did from the 2009 recession.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly very interesting, Dr. Lopkin. It certainly has huge. Well, let's look at the political ramifications. Where do you see this politically?
I think politically it's a wash. The Trump supporters are furious with the Democrats for all the garbage they tried to put in the stimulus package. The people with Trump derangement syndrome are already going, well, this wouldn't have happened if Trump didn't disband the pandemic team in 2018. So everybody is blaming the other side, which, let's face it, that's what was happening before the pandemic.
Sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Any final thoughts, Dr. Lopkin?
The one thing politically that I found interesting is that up until last week, every presidential poll had Biden beating Trump by quite a bit.
Yes.
Now we know the polls are, not
Yeah.
terribly accurate, and however, over the last week, Biden's no longer beating Trump by a lot. Those numbers are getting slimmer and slimmer.
Well,
So
I think that's going to happen anyway. I really do, because the more people see Biden, let's face it, he is a highly flawed candidate. If you don't like Trump,
but that's just it. Have you seen Biden lately? He's been
No.
very quiet. And because he's been quiet, people are going, oh, well, he can't lead. So he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. If he comes out swinging and talking, people are going to realize, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. This
No, he
guy's a
doesn't.
terrible candidate. If he stays quiet, people go, well, he's got no ideas. He's not offering any leadership. He's not a good candidate.
I would agree. Well, very interesting times, very scary times for most Americans. For our listeners out there, we at Carnivore are with you. It's very difficult, and it's uncharted waters. Correct, Dr. Lopkin?
It's definitely a scary time for everybody. But I did come across one number that I think people need to pay attention to. The news keeps talking about all of the deaths, all the fatalities, and they give you the mortality rate, which is, as we've said before on the podcast, the number of people that die over the number of people that we know have the condition. Well, ABC gave the numbers to calculate the morbidity rate. This is the number of people, and this was just for New York City, which is the highest concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And morbidity is the number of people that die over the population.
Okay.
And the morbidity rate for this is 1/1000%.
Interesting.
So it's, is it difficult for us? Yes. Is it going to be a struggle to get through this? Absolutely. But people need to stop fearing everything and just take things as they come.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and that concludes this another edition of Carnivore Bites. Back
And
next week.
we'll see you Friday for our live edition. You can call in and participate on the podcast. You can find that Friday at 4 at blogtalkradio.com/carnivore radio. See you there.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners. Take care.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week on carnivoreradio.com, exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.